And now for a third and final question from Julie Douglas.
Do you think North Down has missed the boat regarding the Olympics, given the delay in the building of the Olympic-sized swimming pool in Bangor?
Okay, John Barry.
Yes, obviously, I mean, it is a disappointment that the swimming pool wasn't open in time to enable Olympic, teams to come and train here and so on. And it's now been further delayed. It was due to open in August this year. It's now going to be early next year. Now that's due to no fault of the council or anyone else, but nature. I mean, I could blame my party perhaps. Storms affected things called the glulam beams. I don't ask you what they are, but they're very important for the Olympic-sized swimming pool. So in terms of, yes, it would have been nice to have it up and running, but large-scale infrastructural projects like this always inevitably have delays. In this case, it had to do with the geological structure that was discovered in terms of, the rocks being much, stronger and needing more blasting and so on than anticipated. So yes, we have missed the boat, but it's all not bad. I mean, it's going to be a fantastic 50-metre swimming pool. It's going to bring a lot of attraction here to North Down. So in terms of the Olympics, yes, but I think it had always been the view that the Olympic swimming pool is going to be a legacy in terms of what we're going to get from the Olympics itself. So the Aurora, I think we can say what the name of it is going to be, will be a fantastic asset to North Down. It could be a bit critical, just to finish, and I can pass over to my colleagues. Our concern is that the way in which this is being done in terms of the selling off of the leisure complex and the outsourcing of leisure services is particularly worrying in terms of the privatisation of public services, in terms of Queen's Leisure Complex and Hollywood Sports Development in North Down, and indeed the new Olympic-sized swimming pool will not be managed by the council but by a private company. So if it would be critical to be on that point in terms of the management, that it's now going to be outsourced and effectively privatised.
Okay, and Stephen Farry?
Well, I mean, I don't think we've missed the boat in the sense that the Olympics and the pre-training was only ever going to be one extremely small aspect of that. And if you see that the level of interest in teams coming to Northern Ireland is fairly small and minimal. And the economic spin-off from that was going to be fairly small for the local economy. So I think it really has to be seen in terms of the long-term perspective, both for Bangor, North Down and Northern Ireland, of having what is a real international standard facility right on our doorstep, or where we can actually attract international competition and where we can actually train local people from right across Northern Ireland, but also locally, to that real world-class standard. So I think something we can be proud of. I mean, sure, it's frustrating that it didn't happen a year ago, but we are where we are, and it's important that we look to the future in all of this. I think this, just to respond to what John said, I mean, this has to be viewed as being an important facility that we have. It's going to cost a lot of money to build, and we've decided to make that investment because it is important, but it also costs a lot of money to run, and we have to make sure we do that extremely efficiently, especially whenever we're taking public money to do that. That's in the context as to why we're bringing in professional people to manage this, to make sure that we get the best value for all we do. That doesn't mean that the entry levels are going to be any steeper than they would be for a public facility. It just means that we bring in people who will to run it and actually drive down the cost as best they can in terms of the efficiency, and indeed the staff that move across have the protection as they move across from the public to a private situation under what's called 2B.
Okay. Peter Weir.
Thank you. In many ways, I can understand the frustration, but I'd agree, I don't think we've missed the boat. And the reason why I'm saying that is, I think it's wrong to focus in on purely the 2 weeks of the Olympics or maybe the month before it. You're actually talking about a facility which is going to be both world-class and actually providing an excellent service for 30 to 40 years. It's going to be, as John indicated, like a legacy project. And indeed, from the point of view of the quality of it, as finance was fairly tight on it, this was actually the only project which was, only large capital project which was actually funded by DCAL. It effectively came top of the list in that regard. So we've been able to draw in a certain amount of central government money. It will be actually, for instance, then the only 50-metre pool anywhere in Northern Ireland. And indeed, I suppose even just by way of an aside, when we're talking about the size and indeed the number of staff, not only of the current staff transferring in, but actually it will lead to an expansion in staff in the leisure facility, which actually will mean new jobs, largely speaking, for local people in that regard. Now, I would again take exception to what John said in terms of the running. With the best will in the world, given the fact that you've got a much bigger leisure centre, in terms of scale, there is not a leisure centre of the size of the Aurora anywhere in the UK which is run by a council. They're all effectively run by management companies in the private sector, and the reason for that is very obvious, that in terms of the projections on that, it will mean that the difference is somewhere probably between £250,000 and £500,000 a year of a difference in terms of the cost. And we've got to look not simply to what's being done there, it's got to be done in the most professional manner, but also the impact on ratepayers, and try to ensure that in very tough economic times people are not overburdened by what they have to pay for this. And I think that is by far and away the best economic way of running it. It's the most efficient way from a management point of view, and current staff will be protected in terms of their term conditions. But we will have something that we can actually in North Down be absolutely proud of, and it's something we can look forward to, not just for the couple of weeks of excitement of the Olympics, but also for 40 years. The final point just I'd make, John mentioned, which is quite correct, that there's been certain levels of delay by certain things which were outside of our control from an environmental point of view. There was also, I think, at early stages, a certain level of delay because we had to take a certain level of caution to make sure from a financial point of view that everything was got right. You know, we could have, in many ways there was a possibility we could have rushed things, we could have got it a few months earlier. We might have actually mucked up the arrangements there and end up costing us millions. So it was important that we got that bit of it right as well. That's the real legacy that we've got to look forward to as well.
Okay, and Leslie Cray.
Well, I was a member of the council when we took that decision and fully supported it. The existing leisure centre is a 70s building, you all know it, and it was costing literally millions to try and keep it up to sort of a reasonable standard, and you were still limited to what you had there. It always was planned that it would be open for training prior to the Olympics. That was the target. There were two things happened to delay that. So if we haven't missed the boat, we've certainly missed the tender that's going out to the boat, and the PR value of that unfortunately has been lost, and that would have been significant prior to the Olympics. The two problems that came up, first of all, was the question of part of the site being an infill site, being a rubbish tip. Now, everybody, including the dog, knew that was a rubbish tip. And the contractors, I don't know what happened to the end of it, maybe we'll talk later with one of the councillors and see what happened, but we had a contractor who in fact had to do a large number of boreholes to check the ground conditions, and did so, but never found any evidence of rubbish, which is amazing, I think, considering it was a rubbish tip. The other one is, it was part of a public competition, and we got a figure, I think it probably was something like £1 million from DECAL for it, the Department of Culture, Arts and Leisure. It was held up there for a year by one of Peter's ministers, but fortunately one of Peter's ministers took over again in the shape of Gregory Campbell, and he moved it within weeks, to his credit. So we did lose that year, and of course we're really looking like a year out. So those are the two big problems. I guess it's water under the bridge now, but we will have a resource that we can be proud of. I think it's the first 50-metre pool in Ireland. Now I'm good for about 50 metres, so I'm looking forward to swimming the length of it then when it opens. But
unfortunately, I swim like a brick.
A good question, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Well, that brings this year's programme to an end. So could you please give a big round of applause to our guests, yourselves and the media production students.